Good morning, students. Welcome back to our online class of week 6 of class 12 business study. Today I am going to start the topic techniques of scientific management, in which we will study the next technique, that is method study. The objective of method study is to find out the best way of doing the job and maximize the efficiency in the use of resources, cost of production, and to minimize the quality and satisfaction of customer. For example, suppose the process followed for purchasing of raw materials, producing finished goods, its packaging, delivery to customer are all parts of method study, in which you will decide that what quantity and quality of product you are going to give to your customer. So we will do the next study, that is motion study. It refers to the study of productive movements. It is the science of identifying and eliminating wasteful movements resulting from unnecessary, incidental, and unproductive motions of the workers, so that it takes less time to complete the job efficiently. So we can take an example like automobile service stations, banks, departmental stores, ticket counters, etc., in which we can say that we have to check the motions of the workers has to be reduced, which are only relevant for that particular period of time, like lifting, putting objects, sitting, and changing positions, which are undertaken while doing a typical job. But we have to remove the irrelevant motions which are not required while doing that particular job. So that is our motion study. Our next study is time study. In time study, we determine the standard time taken to perform a well-defined job, and for determining that standard time, time measuring devices like stopwatches are used to measure time taken to perform a repeated activity. So, it requires to measure time for each element of activity. So, in time study, the main objective is to determine the number of workers to be employed, frame suitable incentive schemes, and determine labor cost. We can take an example like factory manager was preparing a production schedule. He was planning to give targets to every employee but was not so sure how to do so. He decided to observe all workers and to check on their productivity. After several observations, it was determined that a worker takes 5 minutes to pack one box. Therefore, in 1 hour, he can pack 12 boxes, and in an 8-hour shift, he can pack 84 boxes with 1 hour lunch break. The manager could fix the task to be completed in a standard time. Once the standard were fixed, he could easily set targets and determine wages and incentives to achieve maximum productivity and efficiency. Our next study is fatigue study. Fatigue study seeks to determine time and frequency of rest intervals in completing a task. The rest intervals will enable workers to regain their lost stamina, thereby avoiding accident, rejections, and industrial sickness. Just imagine a school day without any breaks. You may have to attend lessons one after the other. Would you be able to concentrate? I'm sure you will not. That is why schools have the concept of short and long breaks. Similarly, workers need rest intervals so that they can recharge their energy level of optimum contribution. Therefore, every business organization, maybe factory or office, has lunch and tea breaks. Then the last is a differential piece wage system. It differentiates efficient and inefficient workers and links wages and productivity. The standard output per day is established and two-piece wage rate systems are used. Higher for those who achieve up to and more than standard output, such that efficient workers, and lower for inefficient and slow workers. Thus, efficient worker will be rewarded and inefficient will be motivated to improve their performance. For example, the standard output as 10 units per day and standard wage rate 50 per unit if the standards are met. He also mentioned in the wage policy that if any worker fails to meet the standards, he will be paid rupees 40 per unit. And if a worker exceeds standard output, maintaining quality will be paid rupees 60 per unit. So in this they have divided the worker into efficient and inefficient worker, and efficient worker are motivated by giving more wages as per unit as compared to inefficient workers, and those who are inefficient, they will also motivated by this to work so that they can also achieve the level of having more salary as compared to efficient worker. These are the scientific techniques used by Taylor for the betterment of an organization. Now we will move to our next researcher, who is the Fayol, and he has also given 14 principles of management which are also universal in nature. So according to Henry Fayol, specialization promotes efficiency of the workforce and increasing productivity. In addition, he says the specialization of the workforce increases their accuracy and speed. This 14 principle of management is applicable to both technical as well as managerial activities. As you can see in the diagram, I have mentioned 14 principles of management developed by Fayol. So according to him, there are 14 principles like division of labor, authority and responsibility, discipline, unity of command, unity of direction, organizational needs over individual needs, fair payment for efforts, centralization, chain of command, a place for everything and everyone, treat people equally, limited turnover of employees, encourage initiative, promote harmony. So, in our today class, we will cover only 5 principles of Fayol so that it would be clear enough to you to learn all these principles. So first of all, we will take the very first principle, that is division of labor or division of work. So according to this principle, Henry wants to say the intent of division of work is to produce more and better work for the same effort. Specialization is the most efficient way to use human effort. So they want to say that the work is to be divided into small tasks and the workers are trained specialists who is competent enough to perform that job which for they are appointed. Thus it leads to greater efficiency, specialization, increased productivity, all that. So in this principle, Fayol wants to state that number 1, work should be divided into small tasks. Second, each job should be performed by a trained specialist. Third, entire organization should be divided into separate departments, for example, finance department, marketing department, production department, human resource department, etc. Each department should be managed by a specialized person who individually motivate their teams to achieve the departmental goals effectively and efficiently. And the last, all departments unify the individual efforts to collectively achieve the organizational goal. We can take an example which make you more clear the division of work. In a school, The principal looks after administration, and under him or her there are individuals in charge for academics, disciplines, admissions, co-curricular activities, etc. Similarly, the business enterprises have separate professionals for sales, production, finance, human resource, so that they can manage and divide the work among their workers who are specialized in that particular work. So division of work generally says that the manager has to divide the work into small parts so that they can be divided to specialized or trained persons, and they can do the job very well, which is helpful in the success of an organization. Now we move towards the next principle, that is authority and responsibility. First of all, I want to clear the meaning of authority and responsibility. Authority is the right to give orders and obtain obedience, and responsibility is the corollary of authority, which means that if some work is given to you, you are responsible, you have to do that work on that particular time. So, in the simple words, we can say authority means power to take decisions, and responsibility means obligation to complete the job assigned on time. So Henry wants to say that authority and responsibility moves together. If you give authority to any person, then he will be a dictator and try to do that work according to his own wish. You should give him some responsibility also. And on the other hand, if you give responsibility to one person and he has no authority, he can't take any decision for that project, then also it is harmful. So he says that authority and responsibility moves together. The two types of authorities are official authority, which is the authority to command, and personal authority, which is the authority of an individual manager. So we can take an example like a sales manager has responsibility to achieve sales target. He has authority to plan his visits to customers, presents organizational offers and schemes. At the same time, he has authority to negotiate price with customers. If the sale managers offer discounts, which brings bigger volume of business and greater profit, there is an imbalance between responsibility and authority, but it is in favor of business. However, if sale managers give discounts for personal benefits leading to loss for an organization, it is considered as an abuse of authority. So simply we want to say that if you are giving some responsibility to a person, you should give the authority also, so that he can take a right decision which is beneficial for the organization. Now we move to our third principle, that is discipline. Discipline means the obedience to organizational rules and employment agreement which are necessary for the working of the organization. Discipline requires good supervisors at all levels, clear and fair agreements, and judicious application of penalties. So, discipline means following organizational rules, honoring employment contract by both employees and the management without any prejudice towards each other. So, this principle says that the organization must have clear and fair agreements, clearly state penalties, good supervision at all levels, who do not function according to personal choices and biasness, the judicial application of penalties. So, I will give you one example. If the company has fixed standard for production, wage rate and incentive plans, then company must pay to its worker according to targets achieved. The workers also must try to achieve the targets, and if they are unable to achieve targets, then they must accept the differential wage rate without any prejudice against the company. So means whatever has been decided by the company for the management or employees, it should be without biasness, and they should follow it with full honoring. So now we'll move to our next principle, that is unity of command. So this principle says that each participant in an formal organization should receive orders from and be responsible to only one superior. Means there should be command given by the workers by only one supervisor, because if it is given by different supervisors, then the workers will get confused that whom to follow. So this principle states that there should be one and only one boss for each individual employee. Secondly, order instructions from only one superior, provide clear direction to perform a task. Violation of unity of command principle leads to undetermining of authority and discipline, confusions and instability in the organization. You can see I have drawn a diagram in which the red circle shows superior and the green circle shows subordinates. So the first one is the right approach. There is one superior on them and 3 workers are worker under them. But in the second one, there are 2 superiors and they are giving commands to the 3 workers, so they are confused whom to follow, what to do. So the command should be given by one supervisor to the workers. We can take one example also, like the production manager instructs its supervisor to produce product, but the sales manager comes and tell the supervisor to stop production and produce some other product instead, because there is market demand for that product. Because of different set of commands from 2 bosses, the supervisor will be confused and may decide to produce nothing. So it create a confusion among them that whom to follow, which instruction should be followed. So this principle clearly states that there should be one supervisor who is giving commands to his workers. So the last principle for today is unity of direction. It is also the part of unity of command, which says that each division of organization must have its own in charge, its own plan and execution resources to achieve specific goals, which states that the efforts of all the units of an organization must be coordinated and focused towards achievement of organizational goals. To ensure unity of action and coordination, the departments with same objectives must follow one plan and have one head to lead. It also says that all units of an organization should move towards the same objective through the coordinated and the focused efforts, but the person who is giving the direction should be one for each department. Suppose the finance department should have finance manager who is giving instructions to the finance department. Likewise, sales managers for sales department who is giving instruction to sales workers who are working under him, but there should be proper coordination between the sales and finance department so that they are moving toward one organizational goals which they have to achieve. So one head and one plan for each department, which ensures unity of action and coordination. As you can see, I have drawn the diagram which is easily saying that how they can do that. I have given you one activity also through which you have to make a model on a loose sheet with the help of an example to show the principle which we have learned today: principle of direction, authority and responsibility, discipline, unity of command and unity of directions, which are followed in an organization. You have to make a model chart in which you show these all principles are equally followed by an organization to achieve that goal. So I will tell you the basic difference between unity in command and unity in direction on the basis of the comparison. First, the meaning. Unity of command refers to the principle of management that says that one should get orders from and report to only one boss, whereas unity of direction states that all the activities with same objective must have one head and one plan. So the purpose of unity of command is dual subordination, whereas unity of direction prevents duplication of activities. Implications: it affects an individual employee. Command affects an individual employee, whereas direction affects the entire organization. The outcome of unity of commands leads to effective functioning of the subordinates, whereas direction results in coordination of work of various employees and managers. Relationship in command is between superior and subordinate, whereas in direction as per organizational plans and goals. Need of unity of command is to fix the responsibility of each person in the organization, whereas for efficient functioning of organizational activities in unity of direction. So, our today's topic is finished, and we will continue in our next class with other principles which are left. So I am giving you one assignment for which you have to make your own notes from the above given PDF file, and do these assignment that I have given to you. Do all the questions and case study which has been given to you. First, go through the PDF file and the video, the reference video. The link you can see is given at the top of the chapter, and do the assignments and read the PDF file very carefully. So, do well, enjoy your work, stay home, stay safe, all the best. Goodbye.